Have you ever really stopped to think about the real cost of things, especially big things like government projects? Not
Hmm.
just the price tag, but all the, hidden costs.
Yeah, those expenses that sort of ripple outwards.
Exactly. Well, today we're diving into something just like that. There's a brand new report out of Kenya, literally just published today, September 3rd, 2025,
Hmm.
and it sheds some pretty stark light on government travel spending. We're talking billions of
Crazy
shillings,
numbers.
huge numbers. And it's a fascinating story about, well, promises made to cut costs running smack into reality, I guess.
It really is. And what's so interesting here, I think, is how we can piece together the controller of budget's findings
Hmm.
with things the president has said before.
Right.
It helps us understand the sort of knock-on effects of all this travel spending. So our aim today really is to help you look past just the headlines, the big figures.
Get into the weeds a bit.
Yeah. It's exactly. Understand what it means for development, for Kenya's finances overall. It shows how one spending area can tell a much bigger story about, national priorities
Yeah.
and challenges.
Okay, so let's get into those numbers then. The ones that sparked this whole deep dive.
Let's do it.
The national government, in the last financial year, so that's July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, they spent, get this, cliche, 25.46 billion.
Billion with a B.
Billion with the B, Kenyan shillings, just on travel, local and foreign.
Wow.
25 billion. I mean, that's just a staggering amount of money. And this comes directly from Margaret Nyakang'o, the controller of budget.
And her role is key here, right? She's basically the gatekeeper for public money, approving withdrawals.
Precisely.
And that's why she's waving this red flag, as she put it.
Hmm.
She actually said, and I think this quote is important, "I still see elements of too much foreign travel in a sense that we are now encroaching on resources for development."
So it's not just, oh, they're traveling a lot. It's that this travel is actively taking money away from other things.
Exactly. It directly hits the government's ability to fund, essential services, infrastructure, things people actually need, schools, hospitals.
Yeah. Can you put that, Kinesh, 25 billion in perspective? Like, what could that actually buy?
Well, just as a rough idea,
Yeah.
you could probably build around, say, 25 fully equipped secondary schools with that kind of money.
25 schools.
Or significantly boost funding for national health care, maybe, which often needs more resources. So yeah, these operational costs, when they balloon like this, they can genuinely eat into the funds needed for progress. That's the first big takeaway, I think.
That really drives it home. But here's the thing that makes it even more, well, interesting, or maybe frustrating. This isn't new, is it? We've heard about needing to cut travel before.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you remember back, 2 years ago? President William Ruto made a very public promise, slash government travel spending by half, 50%.
That's right. The target was in cash, 11 billion cut. He specifically said it was to free up funds for development.
Do you remember the exact quote? Something in Swahili?
Yeah, it was. Kunapunguza pesa ya travel, all government agencies by 50%. Basically, cutting travel money by 50% across the board.
And then things got even tighter, didn't they? About a year later, the Finance Bill 2024 didn't pass.
Right, it got shot down, which left a big hole in the budget.
So President Ruto announced even more cuts. Further stringent measures, he called them, to stop unnecessary travel. It really sounded serious.
It absolutely did. There was clear intent stated.
Mhm.
But when you look at what actually happened,
The numbers tell a different story.
a very different story. The actual reduction. The controller of budget calls it a meager drop of kosh. 1.7 billion.
Wait, 1.7 billion when the target was 11 billion.
Exactly. It's less than 15% of what was aimed for.
Wow.
And it's not just her saying it. The Auditor General's report, which looks at how money was actually spent after the fact, basically confirmed it. Little to no reduction, it said, despite all the promises.
So the controller controls the tabs, but the Auditor General checks the receipts afterwards, basically.
That's a good way to put it. And both reports point to this huge gap between the directive and the outcome.
So even a direct order from the top, it just gets lost somewhere.
It seems so. It really highlights how hard it can be to implement these kinds of cuts across the whole government system. Suggests, maybe some deep-rooted habits or challenges in making these reforms stick. The gap is just huge.
Okay, so that phrase Nyakang'o used, derailing development, let's unpack that a bit more. What does that look like? When funds get diverted from development to travel, what happens on the ground?
Well, it can be quite direct. Think about projects that were planned. Maybe a new road to help farmers get their goods to market.
Okay.
Or perhaps equipping a training center so young people can learn skills. or even just buying basic medicines for local clinics.
Right. Essential stuff.
Essential stuff. When the money earmarked for those things gets used for travel instead, those projects might just stop,
Right.
or they get delayed, or they get scaled back significantly.
So it's not just abstract budget lines.
Not at all. Nyakang'o was very clear. Our development budget reduced significantly. This isn't just numbers shuffling around, it's real progress being held back. It could be the difference between a kid getting a better classroom next year or not. It slows down improvements that affect everyone's quality of life.
Okay, so if the travel spending wasn't cut as planned and development budgets are shrinking, where did the extra money for all this travel actually come from? It has to come from somewhere, right?
Exactly right. That's the million-dollar question, or rather the billion-shilling question.
Right.
Nyakang'o addressed this too. She said, basically, these funds have to come from somewhere. So either they cut funding from another area, another vote, as it's called, or
Or they borrow.
they borrow. Which means, she points out, our national debt goes up, whether it's local or foreign borrowing.
And that ties into something called Article 233 funding, doesn't it? I saw that mentioned.
Yes, exactly. Article 223 of the Constitution allows the government to spend money beyond the original budget, but it's meant for extraordinary circumstances, unexpected things,
Yeah.
emergencies.
Okay, like a natural disaster or something.
Precisely. But what seems to be happening, or at least what the report suggests, is that it might be being used for more, well, routine overspending. For instance, State House itself requested an extra kish, $5 billion under this article.
$5 billion extra. For what?
The report details it. Domestic travel, hospitality food, accommodation, events fuel, and vehicle maintenance.
That doesn't sound like an emergency.
It doesn't immediately sound like an unforeseen national crisis, no. And this is a key insight, I think. This emergency funding mechanism, Article 223, seems to potentially be acting as a way to cover budget shortfalls in areas like travel and hospitality.
Using the emergency credit card for everyday expenses.
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah. So it's not just that development funds might be squeezed, it's also that this extra spending, potentially funded through borrowing via mechanisms like Article 223, adds to the national debt, which down the line means less money available for everything else. Education, health, infrastructure.
It's a cycle then. Spend more on travel, potentially borrow more, have less for development later.
That seems to be the concern, yes.
Wow. Okay, so with all this travel going on, do we know where officials are actually going? Does the report mention specific destinations?
It does give some specifics, yes. It points to a few preferred spots for top government officials.
Like where?
Dubai in the UAE, it's mentioned frequently, London in the UK, various places in South Africa, and the US as well.
Okay, so major international hubs.
Definitely. And you could argue, look, these are important centers for diplomacy, for trade talks, international meetings. Global engagement is necessary, right?
Sure, you need to maintain relationships, attend conferences.
Absolutely. Things like negotiating trade deals, seeking investment, participating in global forums, diplomatic talks, that's all part of running a country.
But I sense a but coming.
Well, the but is, when you see this pattern of specific, often quite expensive destinations, and you see the sheer scale of the spending that cash, $25 billion, you hear the controller of budget explicitly warning about development being derailed.
It makes you ask questions.
It does. It forces you to ask, are all these trips absolutely essential? Are they delivering clear, measurable benefits for Kenya that justify the cost?
Especially when money is so tight back home.
Precisely. Is there perhaps some travel that's become almost routine? Maybe going to these places without a really rigorous check each time on whether this specific trip provides enough value compared to its cost.
It's easy to just say diplomacy or international relations, isn't it? But the concrete results, are they always clear?
That's the core of it. It highlights the need for really transparent accountability. What were the objectives of each trip? What were the outcomes? Did we achieve what we set out to do?
And was it worth the money spent compared to, say, funding those clinics or schools we talked about?
Exactly. While nobody denies the need for some international travel, these figures really push for a harder look. A critical evaluation of necessity versus, let's say, discretionary travel, especially when development funds are being squeezed.
Okay, so pulling this all together as we wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah, let's recap. We've seen this huge figure, Kirish, $25.46 billion spent on travel in 1 year.
Despite promises to make deep cuts.
Right, a massive shortfall in meeting those budget cut targets. And we've heard the direct warnings from the controller of budget about how this impacts development funding and adds to the national debt.
It really paints a picture of priorities, doesn't it? Where the money actually goes shows what's truly being prioritized, regardless of statements.
That's it. Budget allocations are, in the end, a reflection of national choices,
Yeah.
how scarce resources are divided up.
And it's so important for listeners for you to remember this isn't just abstract government
It's
accounting.
not at all.
These decisions have real-world consequences. They affect the quality of roads you use, the resources in your local hospital or school, the overall health of the economy. It touches everyone's lives.
Absolutely. How public money is managed has a direct impact.
Which is why it's good to stay curious, right?
Yeah.
Keep asking how our collective money is being spent.
Definitely. And maybe that leaves us with a final thought or perhaps a question to mull over.
Go for it.
In a situation where, budgets are clearly tight, development is desperately needed to improve lives, and everyone agrees fiscal responsibility is important, how does a government strike that right balance
The balance between.
between the genuine and necessary functions of governance, including international engagement, and the absolute imperative to spend public money wisely, transparently, and accountably, especially when every shilling counts towards development?
That's the fundamental challenge, isn't it? Finding that balance.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's an ongoing one for sure.